The Grand Monarch Hotel was a place of luxury and prestige. At least that's how it was marketed. A five-star destination, a haven for the elite, a name that carried weight and reputation. But today, it was about to be put to the test. Vanessa Brooks stepped through the gleaming glass doors, taking in the grand chandelier hanging over the lobby. The marble floors shined under the golden light, and the air carried the scent of fresh orchids and expensive perfume. To any other guest, this hotel was impeccable. To Vanessa, it was her investment. She had purchased the Grand Monarch 6 months ago, intending to restore it to its former glory. But instead of announcing herself as the owner, she had taken a different approach. She wanted to see how her hotel truly operated, when no one was watching. So today she was just another guest. At least, that's what the staff thought. Vanessa made her way to the front desk, her black silk blouse and tailored slacks giving her an air of quiet confidence. She carried only a small overnight bag, blending in like any other traveler. Behind the desk, Lauren, the receptionist, sat with a bored expression, clicking lazily at the keyboard. She didn't look up. She didn't greet Vanessa, and when she finally did glance at her, her lips pursed slightly, her eyebrows lifting with mild annoyance. Vanessa, ever composed, offered a polite smile. "Good afternoon. I have a reservation under Vanessa Brooks." Lauren's eyeliner-laden eyes flicked to the screen. She typed half-heartedly, then frowned. "I don't see a reservation under that name," she said flatly. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. "I booked it this morning," she replied, keeping her tone steady. "I even received a confirmation email. Would you like to see it?" She pulled out her phone, the email ready to display. But Lauren? She barely even looked. "The system says there's no reservation," she said dismissively. "Maybe you booked at the Monarch down the street." The subtle jab wasn't lost on Vanessa. "Maybe you don't belong here." Vanessa's smile didn't falter. "I'm certain I booked here," she said evenly. "Could you check again?" Lauren let out a dramatic sigh, her nails clacking against the keyboard. Then, as if this entire interaction exhausted her, she looked up and gave Vanessa a slow fake smile. "Ma'am, we're fully booked. If you don't have a reservation, I can't help you." Before Vanessa could respond, a middle-aged man in a tailored suit strolled over. Mr. Franklin, the hotel's manager. He had the air of someone who thought himself important. His expression, one of mild irritation, as though this minor inconvenience had interrupted his busy day. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice carrying a sharp edge of authority. Vanessa turned to face him, her posture calm but unshaken. "I have a confirmed reservation that isn't showing in your system," she explained. "I was hoping someone could double-check." "With corporate." Mr. Franklin barely concealed his exasperation. "Miss—" He glanced at her attire again, his judgment unmistakable. "If it's not in the system, there's nothing I can do." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "You're saying there's no way to verify my reservation?" He gave her a tight-lipped smirk. "I'm saying you might need to find another hotel." The sting of disrespect was clear, the assumption that she didn't belong, the lack of effort to accommodate her. Vanessa could feel the stares of a few other guests in the lobby. Some were pretending not to notice. Others? They watched closely, intrigued by the tension. And then things got worse. Lauren, sensing that Vanessa wasn't backing down, shot Mr. Franklin a knowing look, a silent exchange. And before Vanessa could ask another question, a tall, bulky security guard stepped up beside her. His arms were crossed, his stance firm, like she was a problem that needed to be removed. "Is there an issue here?" he asked, his voice stiff. Vanessa slowly turned to him, her expression unreadable. Lauren didn't even hesitate. "She doesn't have a reservation, and she's refusing to leave," she said with a fake sweetness. Vanessa let out a soft exhale, as if she was watching something predictable unfold. The security guard's posture shifted. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The entire lobby seemed to pause. Several guests had pulled out their phones. Some whispered, others exchanged knowing looks as if they had seen this scenario before. Vanessa, she remained calm, collected, and in one smooth motion she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Then, as if this was just another business call, she dialed a number. The staff watched in confusion as she pressed the phone to her ear. Then, in a steady voice, she spoke. "Hello, this is Vanessa Brooks. I'm at the Grand Monarch Hotel, and there's a bit of an issue. Could you send the regional director and legal team?" A pause. Then she nodded. "Thank you. I'll be waiting right here." She ended the call, then turned back to Lauren, Mr. Franklin, and the security guard, her smile returning. And just like that, the power in the room shifted. A heavy silence settled over the Grand Monarch's lobby. Lauren, Mr. Franklin, and the security guard stood stiff, staring at Vanessa as if trying to process what had just happened. She had made a call, not a desperate plea, not a complaint to customer service. No. She had called someone important, and that alone was enough to unsettle them, but they had no idea just how bad it was about to get. Vanessa remained perfectly calm, adjusting the strap of her bag while checking her watch. Lauren, the receptionist, let out a forced laugh, but it sounded shaky. "So, who exactly did you just call?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Vanessa gave her a pleasant smile. "You'll see." Mr. Franklin shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. "Miss Brooks, let me be clear," he said, his authority still intact. "For now. No matter who you called, we have a system here, and if your name isn't in it, there's nothing we can do." Vanessa tilted her head slightly. "Are you sure about that?" Before Franklin could respond, the front doors of the hotel burst open. And suddenly, everything changed. Two well-dressed men in sharp suits strode into the lobby, their expressions unreadable. Behind them, a woman in a navy blue corporate blazer, two other staff members carrying tablets, and an unmistakable air of importance. The regional director had arrived. Lauren's face drained of color. Mr. Franklin stood straighter, clearly trying to mask his growing panic. The lead man, Mr. Calloway, scanned the room, his eyes locking onto Vanessa immediately. His demeanor shifted instantly. "Miss Brooks." His voice was crisp, professional, respectful. He walked right past Lauren and Franklin as if they weren't even there. Then, to everyone's shock, he extended a hand. Vanessa shook it gracefully. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Mr. Calloway," she said, her voice smooth. "It's always a priority to respond when the owner calls, ma'am." A heavy, gut-wrenching silence. Lauren's breath caught in her throat. Mr. Franklin's mouth fell open slightly. Security took a tiny step back, as if instinctively distancing himself from the mess, because now they understood. Vanessa wasn't just a guest. She wasn't some random woman they could dismiss. She was the boss, and they had just humiliated her in front of an entire lobby full of guests. Mr. Franklin was the first to recover, though his voice wavered slightly. "Miss Brooks," he began, forcing a tight-lipped smile. We had no idea." "That much is clear," Vanessa cut in, her voice still eerily calm. Lauren stammered, We were just following protocol." Vanessa tilted her head slightly, watching her with thinly veiled amusement. "Protocol?" she repeated. Lauren swallowed. "Well, we didn't know who you were." Vanessa's eyes glinted. "Ah, I see," she mused. "So if I had been someone else, someone without power, how would I have been treated?" Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it again. Mr. Franklin was sweating now. We can fix this," he stuttered. "There's no need for drastic measures." Vanessa arched a brow. "Drastic," she repeated, sounding genuinely amused. Then she turned to Mr. Calloway. "Would you mind telling me how much I've invested into this hotel?" she asked. Mr. Calloway didn't hesitate. "Miss Brooks owns a majority stake in the Grand Monarch's holdings," he said firmly. "She has full authority over personnel decisions." Franklin visibly swallowed. Lauren looked like she was about to faint. Vanessa clasped her hands in front of her, taking her time before she spoke again. Then, with a polite smile, she said, "You have 60 seconds to explain why you still deserve a job." The entire room seemed to shrink. Lauren visibly trembled. Mr. Franklin's jaw tensed, even the security guard looked uneasy, and every guest in the lobby was now watching with pure fascination. Because this was no longer about a check-in, this was about accountability. The Grand Monarch's lobby had never been so quiet. Every guest, bellhop, and front desk clerk watched with bated breath as Lauren and Mr. Franklin stood frozen under Vanessa's gaze. Her words hung in the air like a countdown to their fate. "You have 60 seconds to explain why you still deserve a job." Lauren's fingers twitched on the desk. Franklin cleared his throat, sweating. And the security guard? He looked like he was praying to disappear. Franklin was the first to recover. With a tight, forced smile, he straightened his tie and turned to Vanessa. "Miss Brooks," he said, his voice suddenly sickeningly polite, "I want to deeply apologize for this misunderstanding." Vanessa tilted her head. "Misunderstanding?" she repeated. Franklin nodded quickly. "Yes, you see, we deal with so many guests every day, and, well, sometimes mistakes happen. We pride ourselves on excellent service, and I assure you, this was not our usual standard." Vanessa stared at him for 3 slow seconds, then she smiled. And that's when Franklin made his next mistake. He misread the smile. Thinking she was buying his nonsense, he kept talking. "If we had known who you were, things would have been different, of course. But you see, without that knowledge, it was just—" Vanessa raised a hand, cutting him off. "So let me get this straight," she said, her tone still calm, but sharper now. "If I hadn't been the owner, you would have treated me this way, regardless." Franklin's face blanched. I didn't mean it like that." "Oh, but you did," Vanessa said smoothly. "You just admitted that your customer service depends entirely on who you think is important." Franklin's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He had no way out. Lauren jumped in, desperate to save herself. "Miss Brooks, please," she said quickly. I was just following protocol." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Lauren nodded aggressively. "Yes. The system didn't show a reservation, so I assumed—" "Let me stop you right there," Vanessa interrupted, her voice now as sharp as a blade. She turned to Mr. Calloway, the regional director. "Mr. Calloway," she asked, "how does our system handle last-minute reservations?" Mr. Calloway barely glanced at his assistant before responding. "All bookings are backed up in 3 different databases, ma'am," he said. "Even if there was a glitch, it would have taken less than 30 seconds to verify the reservation." Vanessa turned back to Lauren. 30 seconds, she repeated. "Yet you never even tried." Lauren flushed red. And instead, Vanessa continued, her voice now chillingly cold. "You called security on me. Not because of any real reason, but because you assumed I didn't belong here." Lauren's breath hitched. There was nothing left to say. The security guard, sensing the inevitable, cleared his throat. He said, scratching the back of his neck. "I was just doing what I was told." Vanessa looked at him for a long moment. She didn't immediately respond. Instead, she turned to Mr. Calloway again. "How are our security team members trained?" Mr. Calloway folded his hands. "All security officers are instructed to de-escalate situations first and investigate before taking action." Vanessa turned back to the guard. "Did you investigate?" He shuffled his feet. "Not really," he admitted. I listened to them. Unlike the others, he looked genuinely remorseful." Vanessa considered him for a moment before saying, "You made a mistake, but at least you're honest about it." The guard exhaled slightly, nodding. Lauren and Franklin, they weren't so lucky. Vanessa exhaled softly, clasping her hands together. Then she turned to Mr. Calloway. "These two?" She nodded toward Franklin and Lauren. "Fire them, immediately." Lauren's knees nearly buckled. Franklin's jaw dropped. "Wait, what?" he gasped. No, you can't." "Oh, but I can," Vanessa said smoothly. You don't represent this hotel anymore. You never did. Lauren's eyes welled with tears. Miss Brooks, please. No. Vanessa's voice was steel. You didn't respect me as a customer, and you sure as hell don't get to beg me as your boss. Lauren gasped, and with that, Mr. Calloway nodded to security. Escort them out. A second later, 2 actual security personnel, ones who worked under corporate, stepped forward. Franklin tried to argue. Lauren tried to plead, but it didn't matter. They were done. As they were dragged toward the exit, Vanessa called out one last time, "Oh, and Franklin?" The disgraced manager paused, sweating. Vanessa's lips curved into a slow smirk. "You might want to check your own reservation at the unemployment office." The lobby erupted into hushed whispers. Guests, employees, bystanders. Everyone had just witnessed justice served, and Vanessa? She simply adjusted her bag and turned to Mr. Calloway. "Now," she said, "let's talk about the real changes we need to make." And with that, the Grand Monarch Hotel was finally on its way to becoming the place it was meant to be. With Lauren and Franklin officially gone, a strange energy filled the lobby, a mixture of relief, awe, and quiet celebration. For too long, the Grand Monarch's staff had been operating under arrogance, favoritism, and bias. But today, they had witnessed a shift in power, and Vanessa Brooks wasn't done yet. Vanessa turned to face the remaining front desk employees, security, and nearby hotel staff. Some looked tense. Others looked hopeful. All of them were waiting to see what came next. Mr. Calloway, the regional director, stood beside her, watching carefully. Vanessa exhaled softly. Then, in a voice clear and composed, she spoke. "Let me make something very clear," she began. She turned, letting her gaze linger on every single employee. "This hotel will no longer tolerate disrespect toward guests." A few staff members shifted uncomfortably, some lowered their gazes, but no one spoke. Vanessa continued, "I don't care who someone is. I don't care what they look like or how they dress. Every single person who walks through those doors deserves to be treated with dignity." The room was dead silent. Then, a single clap echoed through the lobby. Vanessa turned. An older housekeeper near the concierge desk had started clapping. Then, another employee. Then another, until nearly the entire lobby erupted into applause. Vanessa didn't smile, but something in her posture softened. She knew exactly what had just happened. Lauren and Franklin had been running the hotel like a dictatorship. Employees had been afraid to speak up. Guests had been silently tolerating bad service. But now they had witnessed a shift. Respect wasn't going to be optional. It was going to be the new standard. Mr. Calloway took a step forward, clearing his throat. "As of today," he said, "Miss Brooks has ordered a full-scale review of hotel operations." Murmurs spread through the crowd. One front desk employee, a nervous-looking young man named Jason, spoke up. What does that mean for us?" he asked. Vanessa looked at him. "It means every department will undergo customer service retraining within the next 30 days. Jason blinked. "And if we refuse?" Vanessa's expression didn't change. "Then you can leave now." Silence. "Then?" Jason nodded. "Understood." Vanessa turned back to the security guard, the one who had blindly followed orders but had at least owned up to his mistake. "You," she said, pointing at him. He straightened immediately. "Yes, ma'am? What's your name?" "Derek." Vanessa nodded. "Derek, you made a bad call today, but instead of lying or making excuses, you owned up to it." Derek swallowed hard, waiting for the hammer to drop. But instead, Vanessa turned to Mr. Calloway. "I want him placed in leadership training," she said. Derek's eyes widened. "Wait, was she promoting him?" Mr. Calloway gave a knowing nod. "Consider it done." Vanessa turned back to Derek. "This hotel doesn't need people who blindly follow bad orders," she told him. "It needs people who know how to make the right decisions under pressure." Derek nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. I won't make the same mistake again." Vanessa's lips curled slightly. "I know." Then Vanessa turned to the guests in the lobby. many of whom had been watching the entire scene unfold. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said smoothly, "I want to personally apologize for what you witnessed today." A few guests nodded approvingly. "I want you to know that from this moment forward, the Grand Monarch will be a place where every guest is treated with excellence." She turned to a well-dressed woman in her 40s, someone who had been recording part of the incident. The woman raised an eyebrow. "You mean that?" Vanessa gave her a slow, confident smile. "Come back next month," she said, "and you'll see the difference yourself?" The woman studied her. "Then?" She smiled back. "I will." Mr. Calloway stepped beside Vanessa. "Would you like to head to the boardroom to discuss next steps?" he asked. Vanessa glanced around the lobby, then smoothed the sleeve of her blouse. "No," she said. Mr. Calloway raised an eyebrow. "No?" Vanessa exhaled softly. "I think I'll check into my room first." A front desk employee scrambled. "Forward!" "Miss Brooks, please allow me to handle your check-in personally," she said, nervously adjusting her name tag. Vanessa studied her. She seemed genuine. For the first time since she entered the Grand Monarch, she saw what real hospitality could look like. And just like that, she smiled. "Well," she said, handing over her ID, "it's about time." Vanessa. Brooks had come to the Grand Monarch expecting to find problems. She had found far worse than she imagined. A biased front desk staff, a manager drunk on his own authority, a culture of dismissiveness and favoritism. But now, the toxic leadership was gone. The remaining staff understood the stakes. And Vanessa? She was finally ready to make this hotel what it was meant to be. As she rode the private elevator up to the executive suite, Vanessa leaned against the polished gold railing, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She had been tested today, and she had won. But this wasn't just about her. It was about every guest who had ever been mistreated. It was about every employee who had been afraid to speak up. It was about changing the game for good. The elevator dinged softly and the doors slid open. Her suite was exactly what she expected. Lavish, spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city skyline. But Vanessa barely looked at it. Instead, she walked over to the desk by the window, pulled out her laptop, and started typing. She had work to do. By the next morning, the hotel was buzzing with change. HR was conducting emergency meetings with every department. Signs were posted outlining the new Excellence and Equity Service Policy. An internal hotline was created so employees could report concerns directly to corporate, bypassing bad managers. A guest relations team was formed to ensure every guest received the respect and service they deserved. Word spread quickly. By midday, several employees had already come forward, sharing stories of mistreatment under Franklin and Lauren. Vanessa took every report seriously. This wasn't going to be another empty corporate promise. It was going to be a revolution. That afternoon, as Vanessa reviewed final paperwork in the boardroom, the hotel's head of housekeeping, Maria, knocked softly. "Miss Brooks?" she asked hesitantly. Vanessa looked up and smiled. "Yes?" Maria swallowed. I wanted to say thank you." Vanessa tilted her head. "For what?" Maria glanced at the door as if making sure no one was listening. "I've worked here for 15 years, she said, "and I've seen so many guests treated unfairly." Her voice wavered slightly. "I wanted to speak up, but Mr. Franklin had power. Lauren had connections, and I couldn't afford to lose my job." Vanessa's chest tightened. Maria had done nothing wrong, but she had been forced into silence, and she wasn't the only one. Vanessa closed her laptop, stood, and walked over to Maria. She placed a hand on her shoulder, meeting her gaze. "Terezio will never happen again," Vanessa said firmly. Maria's eyes watered slightly, but she nodded. For the first time in 15 years, she felt heard. The very next week, the hotel's first anonymous guest reviews came in, and for the first time in years, guests were raving about the service. Employees felt valued, and the Grand Monarch was finally living up to its name. One particular review stood out to Vanessa. It was from the same woman who had recorded part of the incident in the lobby. It read, "I came back just like you said I should. And wow, it's not just a better hotel, it's a different hotel. And Vanessa Brooks? She's not just the boss. She's the reason I'll be staying here again. Vanessa smiled, because she hadn't just fixed a hotel, she had changed it forever. And this was only the beginning. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. Your support means the world.